Happy Kobe Bryant Day, everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite players of all time and discuss a little bit of Fanatics. Let's get into it. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Sports Card episode. Today is 8/24, Kobe Bryant Day. I am wearing my Kobe Bryant jersey. I got this back in 2008, the year before they won a championship. So it was the year they got Pau Gasol, and they lost to the Celtics that year, but still had an incredible year and went on to win back-to-back titles. Kobe Bryant was one of my favorite players, not only because I was a Laker fan, but because that was the era that I actually got to go to live basketball games. So there's really a lot of meaning behind Kobe Bryant's death and Kobe Bryant's career and his legacy. I went to my first game, I believe it was against the Rockets. The Rockets had Olajuwon, Drexler, and Barkley, incredible team. And Kobe Bryant was either a rookie or a second-year player. The team was mostly about Shaq, Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel, Eldon Campbell. The core those were the veterans, and Kobe wasn't really part of the mix yet. But he still got some time, and it was cool to see him play. And just a little bit about my background as a Laker fan. I was one of those Laker fans that didn't quite take to Kobe right away. He took a game-winning shot against the Utah Jazz in this game 2 of the playoffs. I can't remember exactly what year. I believe he was either a rookie or a second year. And in my mind, I'm like, why is he taking this shot? Nick Van Exel should be taking the shot. He was the closer at the time. So I was a little bit, pissed off that they're giving him this opportunity when clearly Van Exel was the go-to guy. But as it turned out, I mean, he had an incredible career. And I just want to go over a couple of the games that I was at personally that I got to see Kobe live. One was against the Golden State Warriors in 1999, and it was a really cool game because Michael Jordan was actually at the game. So it was a little bit of a passing of the torch in a sense. And it was a cool game because the Warriors were actually spanking the Lakers. I think they had them down by either 25 or 30 points in the second quarter. So it was a blowout. Not only that, Shaq got ejected from the game, and Kobe injured I don't know what exactly he injured his leg, so he had to come out of the game for a little bit. So the game essentially was over. The Lakers were down by 20 going into the fourth quarter. And I don't know, YouTube it, Google it. It was it's really odd. It was the same day as the Columbine shooting. So that's a way to track the date. But it was in April of 1999, one of the most incredible comebacks that I've ever seen personally. Kobe was it was unreal where he could shoot from on the court, how he took over that game. I think that was the moment that really won me over. Up to that point, Eddie Jones was my favorite player on the Lakers at that time. All time, my favorite player is Magic Johnson, and that still hasn't changed. But that moment there is where I really knew Kobe was going to do something special. And sure enough, they went on to win 3 championships in a row with Shaq, and then 2 more back-to-back later on in his career. So that was one of my most incredible Kobe Bryant experiences, at least being at an NBA game. The other one was, and I love putting this on my resume, Game 7 against Sacramento, 2002. That will still go down as one of the greatest games I've ever been to in my life. That series was just unbelievable. And Game 7 was in Sacramento, so it was on the road for the Lakers. And it's just an incredible game to be in that atmosphere. If anyone remembers Sacramento Kings fans back at that time, probably the best fans in the entire NBA. That place was unbelievably loud. There was no love for the Lakers, I guarantee you that. So it was a really fun experience to be a road fan. And that's actually one of the things that I enjoy is taking my team on the road. And I've been to many road games, and there's super unhappy fans on the other end of that. And I haven't been in any brawls or anything like that. I mean, look at this smile. I mean, how am I going to get in a brawl? But no, I'm just kidding. I'm not dumb. I'm not gonna. If people look like they're angry, I walk the other direction. Especially if my team wins on the road. I'm well aware of how emotional fans can get. So Anyway, that was another awesome experience. Game 7 against Sacramento Kings. So anyway, just wanted to take a moment to celebrate Kobe Bryant Day. Unfortunately, I don't have any really cool Kobe Bryant cards. It's kind of, I guess, in the era that I actually went to games and watched him play, I never actually collected cards during that period of time. So I missed out on all the cool autos, everything that people are showing off now on Instagram and YouTube. Probably will want to get some of that stuff. One of the topics that I'm going to get into is the state of the hobby and the card market. And so then the question would be, do I wait and buy low when the market crashes, or are those cards going to go to the moon and I'll never have an opportunity to buy them again? And I think that's kind of the crossroads we're at right now. One of the cards I did have in my binder, though, nothing too exciting. It's Kobe Bryant 1999 Topps. So this card I had in the binder since 1999, and it graded a PSA 10. So that was pretty cool. I looked up the pop count. There are only 22 of these PSA 10s. So that was a pretty cool find. I also had some Kobe rookies from 96 Fleer. I had 6 of those. I kept those in a sleeve, a top loader, and a team bag. Very well protected. They looked gem to me. I have to imagine, at least out of those 6, I got 1 10. I mean, I didn't think this would grade a 10, and it got a 10. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on those. That's pretty much I have some other Kobe Bryant cards just from later years, but those were kind of the key ones that I'm waiting to get back from PSA. I got one of them back here. But I wanted to get into a Fanatics, since that's the topic that everyone is talking about right now. What does it mean for the hobby? What does it mean for the card market? Is this good? Is this bad? There's just a lot of big questions, and I just wanted to touch on a few things. Check out the channel The Slab Talk with Emil Sarfani. He does a great interview, and one of the things that he says is that his initial reaction to Fanatics taking over, initially it was the MLB license and the MLB player license. His initial reaction was excitement, because this is big money coming into the hobby. And that was my reaction too. I was like, this is great. This is a good thing for the hobby. So I mean, check that out, see what he says about that. I think it's a great interview, and a lot of people are doing, interviewing either people that have been in the hobby, that are in the business side of the hobby. What does this all mean? But in general, I felt excitement, because I think that if Fanatics feels like they're going to put big money into this in 2026, then we're in this for the long haul. Some people have predicted that the market is going to crash in 2024. Clearly, Fanatics doesn't think so if they're not taking over till 2026, and they put some big money into this. So obviously something has to give if you think about it at that point. But all along, I've felt like the hobby is getting stronger and stronger. Now, I know, I think the fear from everyone is the junk wax era, because everybody had experienced the junk wax era, and they're seeing a lot of the same things. They're seeing articles talking about alternative assets, talking about sports cards as an investment. These sorts of topics that are where people are investing big dollars in sports cards, and people who lived through the junk wax era saw that mistake back then, and they feel like people are making the same mistake again. But I believe that we're in it's a different time. It's a different state of the hobby. And essentially what I believe is that we are experiencing something that none of us, even those of us who've been through the junk wax era, have ever experienced before. And I think I could clearly see that a little bit better from those who maybe experienced the junk wax era and then stayed in the hobby all along, or maybe somebody who even came on and joined the hobby during the dead era. And so those kind of dark years, they don't just leave you overnight. When you see this kind of excitement come about, like it happened last year around the pandemic, I could understand the skepticism. I could understand how people could think this is going to be short-lived. This is going to be maybe like NBA Top Shot. All the flippers are coming in, they're driving the prices up, they're all going to come crashing back down, and we're going to be right back to where we were in 2018 or 2015 or wherever you want to go. So I understand that sentiment, but I feel like we're in a different state of the hobby. When you look at people like Jeff Wilson, and when I first started watching his YouTube channel, I didn't really fully understand how much he was investing in cards. as I started to watch more of his videos, I saw he had 200,000 invested in Trae Young. He had, I believe he said he had $1 million worth of cards sitting at PWCC in the PWCC vault. So he had some big money, and it still has big money invested in sports cards. When I saw that, my thought is he's not the only one putting big dollars. And you see some of these higher end sales as well, the LeBron, the Giannis, the Trout, whoever else, in the millions, you know, obviously the Honus Wagner sale. Those are, I think, are in a different class. I don't think that those cards when we're talking about the state of the hobby, I don't think we're necessarily talking about those cards because it's just a different class of collector at that point. At least as far as I'm concerned, I'm never going to be able to own any of those cards, at least not without fractional ownership. So, but just in terms of the general state of the hobby, the demand is there. When you go to card shows, the excitement is there. The other thing is a lot of people are not back in the hobby yet. And that's the thing that I noticed when I got back in about a year ago. My brother wasn't in the hobby yet, and he didn't really understand what my interest was in this anymore. These were worthless pieces of cardboard that were sitting in his shed for years and years. Why am I looking at them all of a sudden? And now he is all the way in. And one of the things he noticed a year ago, he said, well, if cards are so popular, how come my friends aren't back in it? Because when I was a kid, all of my friends collected. And my brother's 8 years younger than I am. And I remember when I was a kid, all of my friends collected. To me, that means there is a lot of demand still to be had. There's a lot of potential. And I think Fanatics sees that potential. That's why they were willing to make the big move. I could see this all along. Once I got hooked, once I got back in, and we got my brother back in and his friend and so on and so forth, I could see the hobby in a state and an upward trend where people are getting back in. Now, what does this mean for the long run, right? I mean, is everybody that gets back in, are they going to be in it 20 years from now? Probably not. I do believe we're going to have a kind of a hype-driven market for a while where people get back in, get excited, maybe build their collections, but then lose interest for one reason or another and maybe sell off parts of their collection or their entire collections. There's obviously going to be fluctuations, but one interview I watched Jeremy Lee's channel, and he interviewed Brian Gray, and Brian Gray pointed out, he said, if anybody thinks that we're going back to the way cards were, they're crazy. Well, I don't know if those were his exact words, but essentially that's what he was saying. And I'm starting to agree. Now, I was part of the junk wax era, so there is a part of me that's skeptical. There's no doubt about that. I'm by no means am I thinking that this market is bullish and there's no way that it could turn. There's no way that it could collapse, is bulletproof or anything like that. I'm not suggesting anything like that at all. I also watch Bench Clear Media, who lately has been putting out content that essentially is telling people to kind of just be aware of what you're doing, is kind of how I take it. I think a lot of people take it as doomsday content, but I think that they're just kind of pointing out the possibilities. And so I do watch their channel and kind of watch it with really just to absorb the content and kind of see how I process it. But again, even with, when I look at both sides, I look at people like Jeff Wilson who are very bullish on the market, and I look at people like Bench Clear Media who are maybe more cautious about the market, and put those two together, I probably lean more toward the bullish side of things, even though I come from the junk wax era. So that's kind of my take on it. I believe that with Fanatics taking over the license and essentially putting in the big money, because that's essentially what happened. I mean, obviously Topps wants to continue to produce baseball cards beyond 2025. They just couldn't compete with Fanatics. To me, that tells me that Fanatics understands the potential, the big dollars that are in the future of the hobby. And they were willing to make the move. And maybe Topps was just too conservative and didn't really prepare for how quickly the hobby has been changing. I did want to talk about Topps though specifically, because I think a lot of people have already kind of determined that Topps is going away forever. We might see the last years of Topps baseball in the next couple of years. And I personally don't believe that's going to happen. I believe that Fanatics will either purchase Topps, figure out a way to purchase the rights to produce the Topps brand. But I really can't see the Topps brand name going away forever. I think it's too entrenched in the hobby. Too many collectors want Topps, and there's gonna be this outcry. There's gonna be this demand for Topps product if there's any sign that it's gonna go away forever. So I think somehow, some way, the manufacturers, Topps, Fanatics, somehow they will collectively figure out a way that, hey, there's money to be made and there's money to be lost. If we lose Topps, and there's money to be made if we keep it going. So we'll pull our resources together and we'll figure this out. That's personally what I believe will happen. So I believe we'll continue to have first Bowman Chrome, Topps, and Topps Chrome baseball cards. That's just my opinion. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Anyway, just wanted to briefly touch on the Fanatics news, which everyone is talking about, and also wish everyone a happy Kobe Bryant Day. Anyway, I will see you on the next one.